The Łódź merchant and community head, Abraham Hirsch Ashkenazi, known as Abraham Hirsch Danziger for his frequent trips to Danzig, sat over a tractate Zebahim, brooding and tugging at his long and thick black beard. He wasn't worried about making a living. Even after decades of exclusion from Wilki and the Weavers' Guild, a sizable Jewish community had managed to flourish in Łódź, complete with its own rabbi, assistant rabbis, ritual slaughterers, ritual bath, synagogues, and cemetery. The reason the Jews prospered was that the German weavers produced a very inferior cloth that was disdained by the rich and the discriminating, who demanded the soft wools, fine silks, gleaming satins, and velvets from abroad. To fill this need, the wealthier Jews took wagons, and later the first trains, to Danzig and Leipzig, while those less affluent conspired with border guards to smuggle in fabrics from Germany. At the same time, barefoot Jewish peddlers and runners fanned out across sandy country lanes to buy wool from the peasants to sell to Łódź merchants, who in turn shipped it abroad to be spun into yarn. The peasants, who used to leave their sheep filthy and unshorn, now bathed them in streams to render the fleece white and clean. Speculators and leaseholders bought up entire future yields of flocks on landed estates. The German master weavers of Łódź vilified the Jews for importing foreign goods from Germany at the expense of the local industry. They also resented the fact that Jewish merchants issued cotton to the poor German weavers, thus bringing down the price of the finished goods. These cotton merchants weren't able to obtain credit at the banks, as were their German competitors, and they lacked the cash with which to pay the weavers. They therefore issued their own scrip to the weavers when they delivered the finished goods on Friday evenings, and the Jewish tailors, cobblers, and shopkeepers accepted the scrip in lieu of money. When the German master weavers complained, the authorities outlawed the practice. They also sent a representative to England to buy up cotton, thus pushing the Jews out of business. But the cotton ended up being stolen by government officials. The authorities generally found it easier to accept bribes from the Jews, who continued issuing the scrip and doing business as usual. Among the most respectable and affluent citizens of Łódź was Abraham Hirsch Ashkenazi, who traveled to Danzig on buying trips several times a year. He had just returned from such a journey, which had proved even more profitable than usual. He had fine presents for his wife and daughters, and a handsome silver cup that he was saving to present to the rabbi of Varka, whose disciple he was. Things at home were going along splendidly, and Abraham Hirsch was delighted. But as a leader of the community, a position he held despite his youth and as the result of his wealth, scholarship, and piety, he was disturbed by a number of problems that had cropped up during his absence. First, funds were needed to provide Passover products for the town's poor, not only the beggars, but also those who worked but hadn't managed to save up enough from a year's toil to buy the necessary matzahs, wine, eggs, meat, and cooking fat for the holiday. Upon his return, Abraham Hirsch had taken his red kerchief and, accompanied by several other community leaders, had solicited the affluent households. It hadn't sufficed, and the poor had stormed the communal house demanding their due. Second, there were Jewish prisoners to be ransomed. Throughout Poland, the Tsar's Cossacks were fighting the Polish gentry who sought to restore a Polish king to the throne, and loyal Jewish leaseholders were engaged in smuggling gunpowder to their Polish masters hiding in the forests. Just recently, a group of Jews had been caught smuggling a quantity of gunpowder in barrels of apples. At first, the Cossacks had found nothing by poking their lances into the barrels, but as they started appropriating the apples, they found the powder. Some of the Jews were hanged on the spot. Others were thrown into prison. Those who were executed had to be given decent Jewish burials. Those in prison had to be ransomed, or at least provided with matzahs for the holiday.